Proof that the things written in the Bible have happened to Lisbet, the true Christ. Part 3.
If we look at Mark chapter 5, we can see what miracles Jesus performed with the wisdom from heaven, which men had never heard of before, and which they wondered in admiration where she had gotten such wisdom and power to perform those miracles. Let's first read verses 39 through 43 of this chapter that speaks about a girl who died and who came back to life, so that we can continue to show the evidence of the things written in the Bible that have happened to Lisbet, the true Christ. This way, all of you will be able to see with your own eyes that the things written in the Bible are not simply stories, or as if they were referring to other people, because that little girl is a representation of Christ. That is why, fortunately, for those of us who are interested in knowing the truth, Christ is here deciphering all these things that could not be understood with the human lens, but that are important because they are the key to understanding the times we are living in, and thus being capable to see Christ who is among us right now, and what it means to be alive in these times. Many are the figures and signs that God has allowed to remain there in order to help you identify and recognize the true Christ today, in the latter days, just as she helped us. The story of this girl, the daughter of Jairus, whose name means God enlightens, who was sick and died, is a figure that explains how in the previous dispensation, Lisbet was spiritually sick because of all the lies that the Antichrist planted in her mind, which is also the figure and fulfillment of the woman who was deceived by the serpent, as it is written. The phrase, God enlightens, is also a figure of how God the Father awakens or resurrects his Christ from the dead, and it was not a mystical resurrection, like the lying religious men and women have planted in our minds. The resurrection of Christ is the enlightenment with God the Father's wisdom, just as Lisbet was enlightened by him. It is not from a physical death that she was resurrected, because she was asleep, which means being without the knowledge of God that gives life. There is a very important detail in this chapter, and it is that although the people thought the little girl was dead, when Jesus arrived at the house of Jairus, Jesus said to them, "Why the commotion, and why are you crying? The little girl is not dead, but sleeping," and taking the girl's hand, Jesus said to her, "Talitha kumi," which translated means, "Little girl, to you, I say, get up." What this phrase means is that as soon as Lisbet was awakened, she obtained the wisdom of God the Father, and it was instantaneously. As soon as he said to her, "To you, I say, get up," she knew the truth that she did not know before. And immediately the little girl got up and walked, for she was 12 years old. This corroborates what it says in Songs 5:2, another figure regarding Lisbet, which says, "In the midst of my dreams, my heart awakened, and I heard a voice. It was the voice of my beloved who was at the door and said, 'My beloved, my precious dove, let me in. My head is soaked with dew. The rain of the night runs through my hair.'" Only God the Father, Melchizedek, could awaken his Christ after the death of the Antichrist, since we know that it was when God the Father gave her his heavenly food to eat that Christ was resurrected. It says that those who were there were greatly startled, but Jesus commanded them that no one should know about it, and said to give her something to eat. This story shows us what happened to Christ Lisbet, who was asleep and was immediately awakened and nourished by God the Father with his wisdom of heaven. And the few who were with her when she was resurrected were greatly startled to hear her speak in a different way. But she said to them that they could not speak these things that they heard, and that they should wait until she shared them. It is no coincidence that so many things written in the Bible apply to Lisbet's life, since she is the only person on this planet who has revealed to us the true name of God the Father and of Christ, showing us the power that exists in her name when we address God the Father in prayer. This is irrefutable proof that what Lisbet says and does can only be done by the Christ who is one with God the Father. That is a fact, and everyone knows that in no mortal man's name is there power from God, but there is power in the name Melchizedek, Lisbet, and today God has made it easy for everyone who wants to, can verify it for themselves. Amen. To be continued.